What up, world? R.I.C.H coming right back at you. And tonight we diving into a moment that changed hip-hop forever, even if people don't want to say it out loud. I'm talking about Doggystyle, the debut that hit the culture like an earthquake, an album that didn't just drop, it arrived like a movie. And if you lived through that era like I did, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That wasn't just a release date, that was an event in the black community. You gotta understand, back then, buying a tape was like a journey. You didn't just press a button, you had to travel to go get your history. I remember holding that tape in my hand like it was a piece of gold. Before I even played it, I could feel something important inside. And when I pressed play, man, listen, it didn't sound like an album. It sounded like a movie opening credits. The production had a weight to it that felt like the whole sound was built around you. Every drum, every bass line, every keyboard note was a piece of a cinematic landscape. And the crazy thing is, most people don't understand how intentional that was. Dr. Dre wasn't making songs. He was creating environments. You were not just listening to Snoop Dogg. You were visiting his universe. And that's why Doggystyle hit like a cultural reset button. See, Snoop didn't rap like he was trying to impress you. He rapped like somebody who already knew he had the game on lock. The flow was effortless, like he was telling you a story on the porch. And that's what gave it that timeless feel. Snoop wasn't performing. He was just telling you about his life. And I'm gonna say this because it needs to be said. This type of artistry does not exist without collaboration and mentorship. You had Warren G bringing records. You had D.O.C. helping with the writing. You had Daz putting structure under everything. And you had Dre building a sound that couldn't be touched. Everybody involved was operating at a level most artists will never touch. And that's why the finished product felt like a damn masterpiece. And this is what a lot of artists don't get. They think if they lock themselves in a room alone, they can create a classic. But classics come from a community. Classics come from iron sharpening iron. Classics happen when you surround yourself with people who can push you past your limits. Snoop was great, but the team around him made him even greater. And that's exactly why 50 studied that album. Because if you're serious about being iconic, you gotta study iconic work. When 50 said he studied Doggystyle, he was acknowledging a truth most rappers are scared to say out loud. Real artists learn from the ones who came before them. You don't get to get rich or die trying without understanding the blueprint of Doggystyle. And that's exactly what made 50 different from most new artists today. They want quick success. He wanted longevity. They want viral moments. He wants cultural moments. And if you don't know the difference, you can't build a career that lasts 20 years. And that's exactly why these new albums don't stick. They lack depth. See, listening to a classic album is like learning a language. You start understanding why certain songs hit the way they do. You start understanding pacing, story, transitions. You start understanding why a great album feels like a complete journey. And that was Doggystyle. The complete journey from intro to outro with no wasted moments. Every track mattered. Every detail was intentional. There was no filler, just purpose. And that purpose was what made it feel so damn big. Now let's talk about the cultural impact of that sound. Because hip-hop didn't just evolve, it transformed. Snoop's delivery made every region take notice. The West Coast had the whole country in a chokehold. Even down south, we were feeling Snoop like our own. And that's why 50 studying Doggystyle makes perfect sense. Because when you know your history, you can build your future correctly. Classics don't happen by accident. They come from the foundation laid by the ones who paved the way. And if the youth today could learn one thing from this, it's that you can't create something timeless if you never consume something timeless. What made Doggystyle so special was not just the sound. It was the world that sound created around black life in that era. Every song felt like a scene. Every verse felt like you was looking out someone else's window. And that's why people still talk about that album 30 years later. Snoop didn't just drop music, he dropped a whole experience. And I want to make this clear for any young artist listening. You can't create a world if you don't live in one. Snoop had to live that life, but he also knew how to tell the story with style, humor, and soul. That's why he stood out. He had the gift of putting you inside his mind without losing his swag. And here's the beautiful part. The album wasn't trying to be polished or perfect. It was honest in a way that didn't feel forced. And that's why it hit different than anything else at that time. We live in an era now where music sounds like it's in a hurry. Everybody rushing to drop something before they even think about it. They're not even living life between projects. They just recording and posting like they on a timer. But Snoop, He let life pour into the music. He let his environment shape the art in real time. And that's why the album felt so real. You could damn near smell it. It was the soundtrack of an entire West Coast generation. And here's the thing most people never admit, even if they know it. Doggystyle made rappers all across America step their rap game up. Old heads studied it, new cats studied it, producers, engineers, everybody learned something from it, even if they didn't admit it. And that brings us back to 50 Cent. When 50 said he studied that album, it wasn't just a compliment. It was a confession that greatness comes from paying attention. You can't build your mansion if you never look at who built the castle first. You can't drop a classic if you never heard one. And that's the problem with so many artists today. They don't study nothing. They just record and hope it sticks. They want respect without foundation. They want legendary without legwork. But Doggystyle showed us you can't fake a world building an album. You gotta curate it. You gotta sculpt it. You gotta bleed into it. And let's talk about the chemistry in the studio. That was a room full of black geniuses working like a single mind. Dre was the architect, Snoop was the star, Warren G was the soul, Daz and Corrupt brought the edge and the lyrical spark. It was a family cookout of talent. Everybody was contributing to history without even realizing it. That type of collaboration is rare today. Everyone is isolated. Everybody is guarded. Nobody is sharing each other's energy. But back then, the collective effort was the secret sauce. Snoop was the face, but the team was the engine. And that team put their foot on the gas and never let up. That's why that album still sounds clean today. The sonic quality was ahead of its time. The mixing was rich and the compositions were full. The bass lines were deep enough to shake a whole block. And the skits were pure cinema. They put you in a different reality without breaking the flow of the album. Young artists today run away from skits because they don't know how to use them. But back then, skits were cultural glue holding the album together. And that brings me to something I think hip-hop lost. The bravery to let a project breathe. Everybody is chasing singles now. Nobody is trying to craft a complete experience. But Doggystyle reminds us what's possible when you value the art more than the algorithm. When you value the story more than statistics. Snoop created an album that refused to be small. An album that refused to blend in. An album that has refused to age out. And that's why 50 could still respect it decades later. He studied it because he understood what it represented. A masterclass in how to stamp your footprint in hip-hop history. And if more artists studied that type of work today, we'd have stronger albums, stronger stories, and stronger legacies. But this is why we have these conversations. Because young artists need to hear this from people who actually lived it. People who bought the tape. People who heard it in real time. People who know what classics look like because they survived the era that birthed them. And that's why these conversations matter. Because without history, you can't have direction. And without direction, you can't have a legacy. And that's exactly why Doggystyle matters. Not as an album, but as a lesson. A lesson in teamwork, a lesson in vision, a lesson in detail, and a lesson in culture. And a lesson in taking your time to create something that the world will be talking about 30 years later. And that's something hip-hop needs to remember. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe, establish rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.